Hi everyone, it's Leandra here from PaperArtsy, and today we've got a new product stamp release for you. We've got some lovely new stamps to show you from Lynn Brown, and I'm actually at Lynn's house. We've been here for the weekend and we've been having a lot of fun playing with her stamps. So hi Lynn.
Hello.
And we're going to talk to you a bit about her stamps and how they came about. So this is a bit of a taster, but first we're just going to back up a bit and go to where she first started doing floral stamps. So Lynn, this was your last release, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
And it was a bit of a new thing for you, really.
Totally different vibe for me. Hugely inspired by a Caribbean holiday that I was very lucky to take last year. I was totally blown away by Tobago and all the plants and foliage that grew there and the colours. Really amazing, and it set my mind whirling and came up with those designs. So for this release, we kind of thought it would make sense to continue on that theme, but not necessarily with a tropical feel to it. We tried to use some more British style flowers instead.
Okay.
So,
well, I really liked how with this last release you've had stencils and things. There's been lots that you could do with those and how they layer up, and it's also nice to have quite a large style or a large style flower, a large format flower, because it works really well on journaling pages. Definitely. And perhaps larger canvases and things like that. So okay, let's show these guys because they're obviously hanging out to see some of your new ones. So we've got, here is one of the first ones, and I like this because you've got the tree branch and the bird cage. So you can hang that off the branch quite happily if you want to, but you've also got a standalone cage.
You have indeed. And you can even take the stand away from this one, and that will also hang from the branch if you want to.
Birds?
The little birds are designed to just go straight inside the bird cage there. But also, if you ink these little birds with a pen so that you don't ink the little branch that they're standing on, you can then stamp those on top of the branch and they sit beautifully on there as well.
Okay. And this is one of your favourite stamps too.
I'm loving it.
Yeah, you're using that a lot in your backgrounds?
Definitely.
And there's going to be a partner video where Lynn's going to show you a technique using this and a background technique that she's doing. So do look up that video as well, a background technique with Lynn Brown using this stamp set. And we've got from Lynn herself, she's done a lovely orange combination. Her sort of go-to colours really are the autumnals, and lots of details on here. She's brought in some of the stamps from other plates and a little bit of white, which just gives it a bit of pop. And the birds that are on the wire here can be used on the wire, or you can cut them out and just sit them in the tree, or you can put them in the bird cage as well. And here's another one, a little bead at the bottom there. So this time she's hung the bird cage from the tree, which is a great little idea there as well. You can sit them in the tree if you want. And we've got the sample here, lovely bright sample from Helen Chilton, and she's actually worked on fabric. If you want to see more details about this, you need to go and have a look at Helen's blog where she'll have more information about how she's made it. But she's used fabric and stitched it on there, got some stitching around the edges, and she's also stitched along the tree branch as well. Okay, so that's ELB 21. So ELB 22, you've got a nice teasel and other flower stamps in here as well. So tell us a bit about this one.
I really love teasels. You just see them growing wild along the edge of country lanes. It's a bit of a challenge to draw, I have to say, but I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I just wanted to have something a little bit different, as I said, from the tropical style flowers. So this one here is my take on a little bluebell. But it's also nice to have background things that work well on anything really. So like the little checkerboard, it's nice to just use here and there in the background. I've done it so that you can actually line it up and it will continue the checkerboard, so you can make a longer border if you wanted to. But with a whole plate of stamps, my aim is to have some focal images, some background images, and some words, so that you can make a complete project with just the stamps on one plate.
Yeah, I love how this one works. I've done a project with these as well, and I love the shape of how this droops, and you can use it at different heights. You don't have to use the entire stalk, and that's the same with the other elements as well. But I like how this can work nicely in the background, or little elements too. Here's a sample that Lynn's done as well. She's got the words down the bottom there. And then this is another one from Helen. And that's moving on to the stamp set here, the Teasel. It's got the Teasel in there and some of the other detail. She's used some white and outlined that with a black pen and the bluebell. And here's one with the same stamp set by Lynn. And she's actually layered up the flower head at the bottom, so obviously that's how it works naturally when it's used on its own. You can see the rubber is all trimmed out. But if you just want to use the flower head, of course you can. So she's used it down there and layered it up. It just gives more depth, and she's also sort of used sequin waste to add little spots on there too. One of her favourite things to do. Okay, so on to the next one, and this is equally as gorgeous. So we've got the lovely stalk here, which works with the tulip head or the poppy head. And I love that border. So pretty.
Yeah, it's completely different from what people really know me for, and also probably quite a shock to a lot of people that actually the index sheet's done in pink. But I really loved the colours of the Caribbean, and that was my limited edition set of paints, so kind of inspired by the bougainvillea paint that was in that set. I kind of thought that the tulip would work beautifully with that colour, and then I thought, hey, you know what, poppies, okay, traditionally they're red, but it doesn't really matter. You can colour this flower any colour you like. I've done it in yellows and it looks just as pretty. So I think it's going to be quite versatile. Layers up really well if you just do the top and do a separate one for the back, curl the petals over. It's going to be a really useful stamp.
Definitely. So I've got this lovely sample here by Kay Carley. And Kay Carley's did a beautiful article very recently in Craft Stamper magazine, using the brushos, the pigment crystals, and she's just used them in such a soft and subtle way that the cards are just so delightful. I really like them. She's got a small amount of embossing on here, which acts as a resist to the inks when they're added to the water added to the inks, so that creates and makes that stamped bit really stand out. Here's another example using gorgeous green tones. And the poppy looks great in those colours too. So she looks like she's actually picked up colours of the ink with a brush and then just added these sort of variegated lines coming out to just give dimension and depth of colour. You can really see it on this one here, the depth of colour by adding layers. And there's this gorgeous one here too. Again, the blues and the yellows look so good. And another one with the poppy. And then finally with this set, there's this sample here from Lynn, where she's used pink and orange, which she used to vow years ago she would never use pink and orange, but finally she is, and it's a fantastic colour combination. This is using her limited edition set of paints, which we ran for the first half of this year. I think they're gone now, but we've got new paints coming very soon, so don't panic too much. And she's done a really cool thing with this. Do you see that pattern across the top there of the stamp design, that border, lovely border? And down the bottom here, there's this spray, which is a really great stamp. What it looks like Lynn's done is she's used the spray at the bottom here, and then she's cut out from the border the little flowers and coloured those in and layered them up on the top of the spray to create a little burst of flowers down the bottom. I think that's such a clever idea. And you can see the borders going across the top here too. So that's with that set. She's got another piece here which is using the poppy, and it'll be hard for the camera to pick this up, but this is actually all done on fabric, and she's stitched these lines, added some beads in there to really give dimension to the centre of the flower. And then this is again fabric that she's stitched, and she's laid fabric up on here. Now this is a little wood block that she's created. It's got a hole in the middle there, so it's one of those small Artemio frames, I imagine, and she's created that piece of fabric to lay over the top, and this is all stamped and stitched as well. So more really great ideas there using that set of stamps. We've got a few more here from Karen. Karen's done some great backgrounds here onto grey board and layering up the tulip flower and creating a really nice painted background. A bit of stenciling using one of Lynn's stencils is on that too. And again with the poppy, Karen's got some great use of the stamps and I love that spray down the bottom. I like how she stamped it in green and then in the black to really give it layers. She's got Lynn's stencils in the background too, and of course the new poppies. And then you've got the stunning sunflower, and this is cool because you've also done all the other little spots and things that can be used in the centre. So I like how this one here, you could just stamp it directly on there.
It's designed to go directly in that space, yeah.
Whereas these you could cut out and layer.
And layer over the top. But also, you could use these as background elements, not just the centre of the sunflower. I'm kind of in love with my beanstalk style stem. Yeah, I really like the leaves on that. So I think also these were going to work really well if you stamp it a number of times and cut them out, and you could make a collection of leaves that will sit behind one of the smaller flowers from one of the previous plates. Yeah. But this one also is going to be a really pretty background stamp.
I love that one.
Yeah, and I have found that if you stamp it this way up, it will also make a stem for some of the smaller flower heads too.
Okay, oh that's good. Well, I really like the layers that you get with the sunflower. On your sample here, you've sort of slightly curved the petals over a little bit, and you know, you stamp it on your base if you want and then layer up, and you can make it almost look like 4 layers or more. Definitely. Just by how you arrange them, because if you offset, you can make it look even bigger, can't you? Yeah. So that's really cool. Okay, I've used it as well. So I've used some of Lynn's stamps to make a whole piece. This is one of the 8x8 grey boards, and like Lynn was saying, that little fiddly stamp on here, I just loved cutting it out and using it as a small element on this part of the design. It just layers up really nicely, and it adds sort of, you know, a little touch. Even here I used just the top half of it. And all those other little ones in the background. So this was quite a simple thing. This is for a retailer training day class that I've just done. So, you know, it had to be something that we could achieve quite quickly. But I, rather than colouring in the flowers and like we often do using the translucents, I actually just sort of stamped on top of variegated paint. So I took 2 colours of paint and blended them into each other and stamped the heads and cut them out, and then just put white Sharpie paint pen dots on top, which was a quick way of doing things. I know when you stamp your sunflowers, and you often will use other little tiny dotty stamps and things, won't you, to add interest to the petals or depth, or you'll go through sequin waste.
I like to go through sequin waste because you can get it with like micro dots, so they're quite tiny. Yeah. But one of the other things that I like to add interest to the flowers is by stamping them on printed scrapbooking papers, so that you've already got a design on the petals. So the translucent paint's over the top of, say, a script paper or a polka dot paper. And then just stamp over the top. You've got instant elements added to that. It just adds to the whole look.
Definitely more depth and interest. There's this sample here by Karen. So she's got a lovely background blending out from greys into yellows with the sunflower sitting on top, and she's layered that up. You can quite easily do that with this flower. The way Lynn's designed it, it's quite easy to stamp it a couple of times and layer it up and give it some depth. And you can also see there's different centres for the flower as well. So you could stamp those dots directly into the centre of the sunflower, or you could stamp and cut these out and layer them up. And that's what Lynn's done on this sample here. So this is onto some copper metal. She's actually stamped the stalk and the flower head. So she would have stamped that directly onto the metal and stays on. She's then outlined it with a pointy tool, a Teflon tipped pointy tool. You can get those from 10 Seconds Studio. And then once you've got an outline, you can then flip it over, and working on a foam mat with a paper stump, you can puff out these areas to really give some dimension. And the stamp's perfect for that. So then she'd flip it back so that the dimensional side is now facing up again, and then she'd start working with her moulds, and sometimes she's just filled in areas by using her Teflon tip pointy tool and going dot, dot, dot and creating, little areas. Really good fun. Metalwork is a whole thing on its own, and she's finished it off with a lovely little border around the edge there. And you can see here she's used that flower centre for the centre of the sunflower. So a bit of a masterpiece, that one, isn't it? And then we've got another one here by Lynn. This time she's created a pink sunflower. Who says you can't have a pink sunflower? And she's actually got loads of layers stamped. It's gorgeous. She's got a bit of bling going on, and she's also used that really delicate swirly vine which is on the bottom of the stamp set there. If I turn it over, you can see how we trim them all out by hand very close so that it's easy for you to position these when you're working with them. And that is just a lovely scrolly vine. Again, she's got a lovely painted background, and then her hay pesto, it looks like, for her Jack and the Beanstalk stalk, and little bits of bling dotted around. And she's even used the centre of that flower to create a border across the bottom. Now lastly, I think this is one of my favourite samples from Lynn. She's kind of got everything in this one. So she's used a lot of the different stamp plates, and she's created so many layers. I don't know if you can see the layers here, and it just gives an amazing depth. And I've never seen Lynn do a lot of fussy cutting, but she really has gone to town on cutting out all these little flowers and leaves. It must have taken her ages, but it is so beautiful. It's a really lovely sample. And even using the birds on their own as little embellishments on the stalks here in black is a nice touch. But there are sort of 3 or 4 layers to some of these elements. Created a little sign here for a tulip and poppy. So it's a great little garden. Well, congratulations on another fantastic stamp release. I know these are going to be hugely popular. It's nice to have some more flowers late in summer. In the northern hemisphere it's summer anyway, although it doesn't really feel like it. It's been quite miserable. But so flowers are always a popular element all year round. And well done. I think they're going to be great.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited.
Cool. Thanks.